Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Sunday Bhagavatam session. It's been a while since we have had the Sunday evening Bhagavatam class. So we'll just spend some time recollecting what all we read. We're already in the 5th chapter of Canto 1. So time flies by when you're really getting into the scriptures. So we'll just recollect what was chapter 1. Chapter 1 was all about the questions of the sages who are gathered in Naimisharanya. They are asking questions of a wonderful personality by the name Suta Goswami. Then in chapter 2, which was titled Divinity and Divine Service, Suta Goswami begins to answer the questions of the sages. He glorifies the sages' questions just as much as the sages glorify him as he is seated on the Vyasadeva. And he begins to answer those 6 questions that they have posed him. What is the ultimate good for all of humanity? What is the essence of all Vedic scriptures? Why did Lord Krishna appear in the womb of Mother Devaki and came as the son of Vasudeva? What are the Purusha avatars of the Lord? What are the Leela avatars of the Lord? And then where did Dharma go and take protection, considering that the Lord had left back for the spiritual world? So what is divinity? What is divine service? All of that is, the answers begin in chapter 2. Then chapter 3, we came to the conclusion that Krishna is the source of all incarnations. That there is only one supreme personality of Godhead and his name is Krishna, and all the other incarnations come from him. Then towards the end of the 3rd chapter, we discovered that Narada Muni, that Vyasadeva is not feeling very good about, after having compiled so many scriptures. So the spiritual master appears and he identifies the cause of Vyasadeva's moroseness or dissatisfaction. And that's how we came to chapter 5. Because here, Narada Muni begins to instruct Srila Vyasadeva on what he should do. So before we go into the shlokas for today, let's just quickly read the first 19 shlokas, where there is now going to be an interaction between Narada Muni and Srila Vyasadeva. So it began with, Suta Goswami said, thus the sage amongst the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the Rishi among the Brahmanas, Vedavyasa. Addressing Vyasadeva, the son of Parashara, Narada inquired, are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization? Your inquiries were full, and your studies were also well fulfilled, and there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences, elaborately explained. You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman, as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you be despondent in spite of all this, thinking that you are undone, my dear Prabhu? Shri Vyasadeva said, all you have said about me is perfectly correct. Despite all this, I am not pacified. I therefore question you about the root cause of my dissatisfaction, for you are a man of unlimited knowledge, due to your being the offspring of one Brahma, who is self-born, without mundane father and mother. My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you because you worship the creator and destroyer of the material world, and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive supersoul. Please, therefore, find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. Sri Narada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. Although, great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles, beginning with religious performances, you have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vyasadeva. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness, and thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned, and it is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided under your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. One who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage. Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time. Just as in course of time, we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them. My dear Vyasa, even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down somehow or the other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others, fruitive workers, etc. Because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again. So essentially here, Narada Muni is pointing out the deficiencies in Srila Vyasadeva. What are those deficiencies? Those deficiencies are that Srila Vyasadeva has focused on Dharma, Artha, Kama exclusively and paid very little attention to directing the Jivatmas that their path is to go back to the Supreme Lord. Second, he has encouraged so many different kinds of demigod worship. So naturally, the people will be confused. What is the topmost worship? And people will walk away thinking I can worship anyone for whatever desires that I have. So essentially, Narada Muni is pointing out that Vyasadeva has predominantly focused on those things that are actually going to take people away from Krishna. His intent may have been that I am writing all of this to help the people. That would have been his intent and endeavor. But essentially that endeavor, so much endeavor had gone into leading people away from Krishna. And that is what the spiritual master is saying. That a devotee is perfect, even though he may fall down in material terms. And that literature which does not glorify the Lord is literature around which crows hang around like they hang around a garbage pile. That literature which glorifies the Lord, even though it may not be perfect in composition, is that kind of literature that pure souls are gathered around, constantly discussing that literature. So you can see that the spiritual master has made his views clear to his student, that you have veered away from what is most important. And therefore, he's going to advise Vyasadeva that he should come back and set his mind to actually glorifying the Lord. And that is actually what is going to benefit Srila Vyasadeva and make him feel that this is exactly what is the need of the hour. This is also something that will put him at ease in terms of getting over his despondency. So that will bring us to Shloka number 20 of chapter 5 of Canto 1. Idam hi vishvam bhagavani vetaraha.
Idam hi vishwam bhagavan ivetaraha.
Yato jagat sthana nirodha sambhavaha.
Yato jagat sthana nirodha sambhavaha.
Tadhi swayam veda bhavams tathapite.
Taddi swayam veda bhavams tathapite.
Pradeshamatram bhavatah pradarshitam.
Pradeshamatram bhavatah pradarshitam.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Idam,
Idam,
this,
this,
he,
all,
Vishwam,
Vishwam,
cosmos,
cosmos,
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
the Supreme Lord,
the Supreme Lord,
Eva, almost the same,
almost the same,
Itaraha,
Itaraha,
different from, Yataha,
Yataha,
from whom, Jagat,
Jagat,
the worlds,
the worlds,
Sthana,
Sthana,
exist,
exist.
Nirodha,
Nirodha,
annihilation.
annihilation.
Sambhavaha,
Sambhavaha,
creation.
creation.
Tathi,
Tathi,
all about.
all about.
Swayam,
Swayam,
personally.
personally.
Veda,
Veda,
no.
no.
Bhavan,
Bhavan,
your good self.
your good self.
Tatha api,
Tata api,
still.
still.
Te,
Te,
unto you.
unto you.
Pradesha matram,
Pradesha matram,
a synopsis only.
a synopsis only.
Bhavataha,
Bhavataha,
unto you.
unto you.
Pradarshitam,
Pradarshitam,
explained.
explained.
Translation. The Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead
The Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead,
is Himself this cosmos,
is Himself this cosmos.
and still He is aloof from it.
And still He is aloof from it.
From Him only,
From Him only,
this cosmic manifestation emanated.
this cosmic manifestation emanated.
In Him it rests,
In Him it rests,
and unto Him it enters
and unto Him it enters
after annihilation.
after annihilation.
Your good self knows all about this.
Your good self knows all about this.
I have given only a synopsis.
I have given only a synopsis.
Yeah. So just to summarize the 19 shlokas that we've read so far in terms of how you understand the different breaks in this particular chapter so far, is that from shlokas 1 to 7, Narada Muni is asking certain very pertinent questions. Are you happy with what you did? And Srila Vyasadeva responds to what the spiritual master asks. Then from shlokas 8 to all the way to 22 today, Narada Muni is revealing to Srila Vyasadeva the importance of describing Lord Krishna's pastimes. So we're going to conclude that section from shlokas 8 to 22 today by looking at 20, 21, and 22. So let's look at the purport that Prabhupada has written for shloka number 20. For a pure devotee, the conception of Mukunda, Lord Sri Krishna, is both personal and impersonal. The impersonal cosmic situation is also Mukunda, because it is the emanation of the energy of Mukunda. For example, a tree is a complete unit, whereas the leaves and branches of the tree are emanated parts and parcels of the tree. The leaves and branches of the tree are also the tree. But the tree itself is neither the leaves nor the branches. The Vedic version that the whole cosmic creation is nothing but Brahman means that since everything is emanating from the Supreme Brahman, nothing is apart from Him. Similarly, the part and parcel hands and legs are called the body, but the body as the whole unit is neither the hands nor the legs. The Lord is the transcendental form of eternity, cognition, and beauty. Same thing as Satchidananda. And thus the creation of the energy of the Lord appears to be partially eternal, full of knowledge, and beautiful also. The captivated conditioned souls under the influence of the external energy Maya are therefore entrapped in the network of the material nature. They accept this as all in all, for they have no information of the Lord, who is the primeval cause. Nor have they information that the parts and parcels of the body, being detached from the whole body, are no longer the same hand or leg as when attached to the body. Similarly, A godless civilization detached from the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is just like a detached hand or leg. Such parts and parcels may appear like hands and legs, but they have no efficiency. How can they have no efficiency? Because they're not attached to the whole. So the head and leg, if it is cut off from the body, it's not going to function. It is of no use. The head and the leg is only of use when it is attached to the body. Just like the leaves and branches, they're only of any use. They can only grow, they can only sustain themselves if they're attached to the tree. The devotee of the Lord, Srila Vyasadeva, knows this very well. He is further advised by Srila Narada to expand the idea so that the entrapped conditioned souls may take lessons from him to understand the Supreme Lord as the primeval cause. So essentially, if Srila Vyasadeva has encouraged the Jivatmas to go in search of happiness in the material world, he has actually taken them away from Krishna. So we said that the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas are significant in size because they do tell you all the different types of worships and rituals that one can perform to achieve whatever material desires they have in mind. And every time you engage yourself in such activities, it is taking you away from Krishna. So that is Narada Muni's chief criticism of his disciple. According to the Vedic version, the Lord is naturally fully powerful, and thus his supreme energies are always perfect and identical with him. Both the spiritual and material skies and their paraphernalia are emanations of the internal and external energies of the Lord. The spiritual world is created, or rather exists, because of the internal potency of the Lord, whereas the material world, the Mahat Tattva, in which the material world and everything else exists, it's just like a small little cloud in a giant sky. So both the spiritual and material skies and their paraphernalia are emanations of the internal and external energy of the Lord. The external energy is comparatively inferior, whereas the internal potency is superior. So that's the Yogamaya and Mahamaya. The superior energy is living force, and therefore she is completely identical. But the external energy, being inert, is partially identical. But both the energies are neither equal to nor greater than the Lord, who is the generator of all energies. Such energies are always under his control, exactly as electrical energy, however powerful it may be, is always under the control of the engineer. The human being and all other living beings are products of his internal energies. Thus, the living being is also identical with the Lord, but he is never equal or superior to the personality of Godhead. The Lord and living beings are all individual persons. With the help of the material energies, the living beings are also creating something, but none of their creations are equal or superior to the creations of the Lord. The human being may create a small, playful Sputnik and throw it out into outer space. But that does not mean that he can create a planet like the Earth or Moon and float it in the air as the Lord does. So Prabhupada is talking about satellites that we send into space. We can never be equal to the Lord. We cannot create another giant Earth and allow it to float. That human beings cannot do. The human being, after attaining complete perfection, may achieve a large percentage of the qualities of the Lord, say up to 78%. Actually, later on, Prabhupada says that the only person who has 78% of the qualities of the Lord is Lord Brahma. If we also get 78%, then we are ready to become Brahma in our next life. So, an ordinary person, an ordinary Jivatma, may not reach that full potency of 78%, which is what? 50 of the 64 qualities. So all 50 of the 64 qualities of Vishnu is displayed completely by Lord Brahma. So the human being, after attaining complete perfection, may achieve a large percentage of the qualities of the Lord, say up to 78%. But it is never possible to surpass the Lord or to become equal with him. In a diseased condition only, the foolish being claims to be one with the Lord and thus becomes misled by the illusory energy. Prabhupada says that the last snare of Maya is to convince you that you are God also. And that is the last trick that Maya plays upon you. The misguided living beings, therefore, must accept the supremacy of the Lord and agree to render loving service to him. Why is Prabhupada writing all of this? Because when Srila Vyasadeva tells everybody, you do this and you'll get this desire fulfilled, and you do that and that desire will get fulfilled. If their desires get fulfilled, they begin to think that they're the Supreme Lord. Oh, look, I did something and I got something. How powerful I am. They don't realize everything is actually organized for them by the Lord only. The misguided living beings, therefore, must accept the supremacy of the Lord and agree to render loving service to him. For this, they have been created. Without this, there cannot be any peace or tranquility in the world. Srila Vyasadeva is advised by Srila Narada to expand this idea in the Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the same idea is explained. Surrender fully unto the lotus feet of the Lord. That is the only business of the perfect human being. So, Srila Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva in this particular shloka, you are fully aware who the Supreme Lord is. He creates, he maintains, and he destroys this universe. And therefore, everything is resting on him. There is no Jivatma, including the highest planet like Satyaloka, that has the powers of the Lord or can have the powers that the Lord has. So since all the Jivatmas are dependent on Lord Vishnu, shouldn't you lead them towards Lord Vishnu? That is the hypothetical question that Narada Muni is posing to his disciple. So that brings us to the next shloka, which is shloka number 21. Tvamatmanatmanam avehya moghadrak
Tvamatmanatmanam avya-amoghadrig
parasya pumsah paramatmanah kalam
parasya pumsah paramatmanah kalam
ajam prajatam jagatah shivaya tat
ajam prajatam jagata shivaya tat
mahanubhava yudhayodhiganyatam.
Mahanubhavadbhyudayodigyatam.
Okay. Tvam,
Tvam,
yourself.
yourself.
Atmana,
Atmana,
by your own self.
by your own self.
Atmanam,
Atmanam,
the super soul.
the super soul.
Avehi,
Avehi,
search out.
search out.
Amoghadrik,
Amoghadrik,
one who has perfect vision.
one who has perfect vision.
Parasya,
Parasya,
of the transcendence.
of the transcendence.
Pumsaha,
Pumsaha,
the personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Paramatmanaha,
Paramatmanaha,
of the Supreme Lord.
of the Supreme Lord.
Kalam,
Kalam,
plenary part.
plenary part.
Ajam,
Ajam,
birthless.
birthless.
Prajatam,
Prajatam,
have taken birth.
have taken birth.
Jagataha,
Jagataha,
of the world.
of the world.
Shivaya,
Shivaya,
for the well-being.
for the well-being.
Tat,
Tat,
that.
that.
Maha Anubhava,
Maha Anubhava,
of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna.
of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna.
Abhyudayaha,
Abhyudayaha,
pastimes.
pastimes.
Adhiganyatam,
Adiganyatam,
describe most vividly.
describe most vividly.
Translation. Your goodness has perfect vision.
Your goodness has perfect vision.
You yourself can know the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
You yourself can know the super soul personality of Godhead.
The Super Soul Personality of Godhead, correct. Because you are present.
Because you are present
As the plenary portion of the Lord.
as the plenary portion of the Lord.
Although you are birthless.
Although you are birthless.
You have appeared on this earth.
You have appeared on this earth.
For the well-being of all people.
For the well-being of all people.
Please, therefore.
Please, therefore.
Describe the transcendental pastimes.
Describe the transcendental pastimes.
Of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Shri Krishna.
Shri Krishna.
More vividly.
More vividly.
So Prabhupada is writing, Srila Vyasadeva is the empowered plenary portion incarnation of the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. Shri Narada Muni himself is telling his disciple, you are an incarnation of the Lord. Therefore, you should be able to describe Krishna very nicely. He descended by his causeless mercy to deliver the fallen souls in the material world. So similarly, Narada Muni is reminding Vyasadeva, what is the reason he has come? He has come to help the Kali Yuga Vasis. In that process, he seems to have diverted from his original goal. The fallen and forgotten souls are detached from the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, and they are eternally servitors of the Lord. All the Vedic literatures, therefore, are put into systematic order for the benefit of the fallen souls, and it is the duty of the fallen souls to take advantage of such literatures and be freed from the bondage of material existence. Imagine if you're lost somewhere deep in the Amazon forest. You happen to have your cell phone with you. And, you can connect to the GPS system to figure out which way is out of the forest. But you're all alone. So similarly, each of us Jivatmas are all alone. How can I say we are all alone? Because Prabhupada says, our journey back to God, we have to do it alone. Ultimately, we have to travel to the spiritual world alone. Each one of us will travel at a different point in time in this journey. So you're not going to take your father, mother, brothers, sisters, children, grandchildren with you when you go to the spiritual world. You'll be going by yourself. So it's your responsibility to at least make sure you save yourself. Therefore, Prabhupada is writing, all the Vedic literatures, therefore, are put into systematic order for the benefit of the fallen souls. And it is the duty of the fallen souls to take advantage of such literatures and be freed from the bondage of material existence. Just as much as if you are lost, somehow or the other you have a mobile phone that can still connect to the network, you can find your way out of the dark forest. So similarly, our sages have left behind the scriptures to help us go back to the Supreme Lord. Although formally Srila Narada Rishi is a spiritual master, Srila Vyasadeva is not at all dependent on a spiritual master because, in essence, he is the spiritual master of everyone else. Why is that? Because he himself is supposed to tell us how to go back to the Supreme Lord. But because he's doing the work of an Acharya, he has taught us by his own conduct that one must have a spiritual master, even though he be God himself. So even though Narada Muni is saying, I know you are my disciple, but I also know you are an avatar of the Lord. Hence Prabhupada is saying, why does an avatar of the Lord need to have a spiritual master? Just to tell him that you've not done the right thing? So Prabhupada is saying, because Srila Vyasadeva has come to do the work of an Acharya, he is also demonstrating to us, the Acharya Srila Vyasadeva, even an Acharya has a spiritual master. Even if that Acharya is a plenary portion of the Lord himself. Lord Sri Rama and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Sri Krishna, Lord Sri Rama, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all incarnations of Godhead accepted formal spiritual masters. Although by their transcendental nature they were cognizant of all knowledge. In order to direct people in general to the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, he himself in the incarnation of Vyasadeva is delineating the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So that's why Srila Vyasadeva has come. Primarily to give us Srimad Bhagavatam. Everything else is secondary in terms of importance. The most important thing is that when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, we are already in the spiritual world. That is what Prabhupada explains time and again, that Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different than Sri Krishna. And therefore, every time we hear, discuss, read, understand, apply what we are hearing in Srimad Bhagavatam, then we are actually already in the transcendental world. So to conclude today's section, and the section overall from shlokas 8 to 22, we will look at shloka number 22. Idam hi pumsastapasah shrutasya va
Idam hi pumsastapasah shrutasya va
svishtasya suktasya cha buddhidattayoh
svishtasya suktasya cha buddhidattayoh
avichyutorthah kavibhirnirupitah
avichyutortha kavibhirnirupitah
yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam
yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam
idam, this, he, certainly,
pumsaha
of everyone, tapasaha, by dint of austerities, shrutasya, by dint of study of the Vedas, va, or svishtasya, sacrifice, suktasya, spiritual education, cha,
cha,
and
and
buddhi,
buddhi,
culture of knowledge,
culture of knowledge,
dattayoho,
dattayoho,
charity,
charity,
avichyutaha,
avichyutaha,
infallible,
infallible,
arthaha,
arthaha,
interest,
interest,
kavibhihi,
kavibihi,
by the recognized learned person,
by the recognized learned person,
nirupitaha,
nirupitaha,
concluded,
concluded,
yat,
yat,
what,
what,
uttama shloka,
uttama sloka,
the Lord who is described by choice poetry,
the Lord who is described by choice poetry,
guna anuvarnanam,
guna anuvarnanam,
description of the transcendental qualities of,
description of the transcendental qualities of.
translation. Learned circles have positively concluded
Learned circles have positively concluded
that the infallible purpose
that the infallible purpose
of the advancement of knowledge,
of the advancement of knowledge,
namely austerities,
namely austerities,
study of the Vedas,
study of the Vedas,
sacrifice,
sacrifice,
chanting of hymns and charity,
chanting of hymns and charity,
culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord,
culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord,
who is defined in choice poetry.
who is defined in choice poetry.
Purport. Human intellect is developed for advancement of learning in art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. By culture of such knowledge, the human society can attain perfection of life. This perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being, Vishnu. The Shruti, therefore, directs that those who are actually advanced in learning should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. Unfortunately, persons who are enamored by the external beauty of Vishnu Maya do not understand that culmination of perfection or self-realization depends on Vishnu. Vishnu Maya means sense enjoyment, which is transient and miserable. Those who are entrapped by Vishnu Maya utilize advancement of knowledge for sense enjoyment. Sri Narada Muni has explained that all paraphernalia of the cosmic universe is but an emanation from the Lord out of his different energies because the Lord has set in motion by his inconceivable energy the actions and reactions of the created manifestation. They have come to be out of his energy. They rest on his energy. And after annihilation, they merge into him. Nothing is therefore different from him. But at the same time, the Lord is always different from them. So it's a very interesting facet, no? Since everything comes from the Supreme Lord, nothing is different from him. But at the same time, the minute we separate from the Lord, then we become completely different from him. Especially when we separate from him and interact with his Maya potency. When advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. The personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, fame, glory, etc. are all non-different from him. Therefore, all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. art, literature, poetry, painting, etc., may be used in glorifying the Lord. The fiction writers, poets, and celebrated literatures are generally engaged in writing of sensuous subjects, but if they turn towards the service of the Lord, they can describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But you can't really describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord unless you yourself have heard it from a spiritual master. So just like that, you cannot describe the Supreme Lord and his pastimes. So you have to come in the parampara. Valmiki was a great poet, and similarly Vyasadeva is a great writer. And both of them have absolutely engaged themselves in delineating the transcendental activities of the Lord, and by doing so have become immortal. Similarly, science and philosophy also should be applied in the service of the Lord. There is no use presenting dry speculative theories for sense gratification. Philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. So science is meant to glorify the Lord, philosophy is meant to glorify the Lord. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science, and therefore a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. Similarly, philosophical speculations should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all other branches of knowledge should always be engaged in the service of the Lord. That means ultimately, all sciences, all arts, all philosophies should arrive at the conclusion that everything is resting on the Lord. That means every material subject also should automatically lead you to understanding the Supreme Lord. Similarly, philosophical speculations should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all other branches of knowledge should always be engaged in the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, also the same is affirmed. All knowledge not engaged in the service of the Lord is but nescience, which means any knowledge that we accumulate, but we don't understand that all of that knowledge is actually emanating from the Lord, then we are operating in a little bit of darkness, ignorance. The minute we understand that everything originates in the Lord, from the Lord, it's maintained by Him, then we have truly understood what knowledge is. Then knowledge becomes revealing. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord, and that is the real import. Scientific knowledge engaged in the service of the Lord and all similar activities are all factually rikirtana, or glorification of the Lord. So you can even use science to glorify the Lord. So that is the essence of this particular shloka, where Narada Muni is saying, it's just not me who's telling you this. Practically all self-realized souls have understood that if you want to advance in knowledge, all the knowledge that is contained in the Vedic scriptures ultimately lead to Lord Vishnu. So in today's three shlokas, 20, 21, and 22, we have looked at Narada Muni giving specific instructions to Srila Vyasadeva. The first thing he says in shloka 20 is to expand on the idea that the Lord is the creator, maintainer, and destroyer. You already know this. You now need to expand on that. Then in shloka 21, he is telling Vyasadeva, you should describe the Lord's pastimes more vividly. You have described it here and there in little snippets. That's not enough to attract the Jivatma back to the Supreme Lord. So you have to expand much more, give more elaborate descriptions of the Lord and his pastimes. And in this last shloka, the 22nd shloka that we did today, that the conclusion of all learned circles is that ultimately all knowledge is meant to glorify the Supreme Lord. So with that, we come to the end of this particular section. And Lord willing, next Sunday we will do shlokas 23 onwards. So we'll stop here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha